Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know how we're always talking about getting enough exercise? Well, what if it's not just about how much we move, but when we move?
It's a really interesting idea, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's actually what we're going to be diving into today. We found this study. It was published in Diabetes Care.
Oh, yeah, Diabetes Care. That's a really well-respected journal.
For sure. And they looked at over 2,400 people with type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
Yeah. For 4 years.
That's a pretty long study.
I know.
Yeah.
It's awesome. They tracked people's physical activity using these things called accelerometers.
Oh, so they could really get an accurate picture of when people were moving.
Exactly. And they weren't just looking at any movement. They were specifically interested in moderate to vigorous physical activity.
Okay, got it. So like a brisk walk or a jog, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And they divided people into groups based on when they got most of their activity. So
Yeah.
there was a morning group, a midday group, afternoon, evening, and even a mixed bag group for people who didn't have a clear pattern.
Interesting. A lot of different options there.
Right. And of course, they also had a group that wasn't very active at all, just to compare.
Right, that's your baseline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they wanted to see if the timing of exercise had any effect on how much people's HbA1c changed over those 4 years.
Makes sense. So for folks who might not be familiar, HbA1c, that's basically a measure of long-term blood sugar control, right?
Yeah, exactly. The higher your HbA1c, the less stable your blood sugar has been. So the big question is, did they find any differences between those timing groups?
Drum roll, please.
Well, get this. The afternoon exercise group, they saw the biggest drop in their HbA1c, like a 30 to 50% bigger reduction than all the other groups in that first year.
Whoa, really? That's a huge difference.
I know, right? It was kind of a shocker. And here's the thing. They made sure to account for things like BMI, how much exercise people were getting overall, and even if they were taking medication.
So it really does seem like the timing itself made a difference.
Yeah, that's their thinking. And the researchers were even more interested by that fact that the effect was strongest in that first year when everyone was getting the most intensive lifestyle support.
That is interesting. Maybe there's something about that initial push that makes afternoon exercise extra effective.
Right. Like if you're already making other healthy changes, maybe working out in the afternoon just gives you this extra boost.
Maybe. I wonder if it has to do with how our bodies are kind of primed to use energy in the afternoon. Like we've had a few meals, our metabolism is going.
Yeah, could be. It's fascinating to think about. Oh, and they also looked at how likely people were to be able to stop taking diabetes medication.
Oh, interesting. What did they find there?
Well, you probably guessed it already.
Yeah.
But the afternoon group.
Had the best results.
You got it. They had the highest odds of being able to discontinue their medication completely.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. We always hear about how exercise can help manage type 2 diabetes, but to see that it might even help people get off their meds, that's powerful stuff.
It really is. Of course, got to be careful here. This was an observational study, so we can't say for sure that the afternoon exercise caused these improvements.
Right. There could be other things going on that the study didn't capture. Correlation doesn't always equal causation and all that.
Exactly. But here's what makes it even more interesting. This isn't the first study to suggest that afternoon workouts might be special. There's been other research that's hinted at the same thing.
Okay, so this isn't just some random fluke. It sounds like there could be something real here.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like more than just a coincidence. But then the big question is why? Why might afternoon exercise be so good for blood sugar control?
Right. What's the mechanism here? Well, the study authors, they actually discussed a few possibilities. One idea is that it might be all about managing those blood sugar spikes we get after meals.
Oh, right. Like how our blood sugar goes up after we eat, especially if we eat a lot of carbs. So maybe afternoon exercise helps our muscles use up that extra glucose before it can cause problems.
Exactly. Like your muscles are more ready to take in that glucose after you've eaten, so your blood sugar stays more stable.
That makes a lot of sense. But there's another idea that I find even more fascinating, and it has to do with our body clocks.
Ah, yes. Our internal timekeepers.
I love that, our internal timekeepers. So, like, our metabolism isn't just on or off, right? It's changing throughout the day.
Exactly. And the study authors, they suggested that afternoon exercise might actually sync up better with our natural metabolic rhythms.
So maybe the afternoon is just prime time for exercise to have the biggest impact.
That's the idea. It's a pretty new area of research, this whole exercise body clock connection, but it's definitely one to watch. It could totally change how we think about fitness.
Yeah, it's super cool to think about all of that stuff with our body clocks. But, this study, it was all about people with type 2 diabetes, right?
Right.
So what about everyone else? Like, does it matter when we work out if we're not worried about our blood sugar? Yeah, that's a great question. Is this something we all need to be thinking about, or just folks who are managing diabetes?
Well, those circadian rhythms we were talking about, they affect a lot more than just our blood sugar, you know? It's like our sleep, our hormones, even how well our brains work. It's all connected to those internal clocks.
So even if we don't have diabetes, turning into our body's natural rhythms could, like, help us get more out of our workouts and just feel better in general.
Exactly. It's all about working with your body and not against it. And who knows, maybe future research will find even more ways that workout timing affects our health. I mean, we're just scratching the surface here.
Totally. Speaking of all this, I just remembered reading something about athletes. Apparently, there's evidence that they tend to perform their best in the late afternoon or early evening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Something about body temperature and hormone levels being naturally higher then.
Interesting. It's like another piece of evidence that our internal clocks are really running the show when it comes to how our bodies handle exercise.
It makes you wonder if those of us who aren't, elite athletes could benefit from scheduling our workouts during those peak performance windows too.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's something to that.
It's like, it's all starting to make sense.
Yeah.
Our bodies are these incredible complex systems. And when we start paying attention to those natural rhythms, it's like we can really unlock their full potential.
Yeah.
But, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Like you said before, this is all pretty new research.
Right, exactly. We don't want people to think that they have to change their whole workout routine based on just one study.
Yeah, definitely not.
But, I mean, it definitely gives us all some food for thought and maybe, a little nudge to experiment a bit and see what works best for our own bodies.
I like that. It's like this whole conversation has really challenged some of those old school ideas about exercise. It's not just about how much we move.
Right.
It's also about when we move.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where your workout routine and your body's natural rhythms are like in sync. And that sweet spot, it might be different for each of us, right?
Absolutely.
What works for me might not work for you, and that's totally fine.
So, for folks who are listening and thinking, okay, I want to try this out, what would your advice be? Where do we even begin?
I would say just approach it with like a spirit of curiosity. Don't feel like you have to make these huge changes overnight. Just start by paying attention to how you feel when you exercise at different times. Like, do you have more energy in the morning, or do you just like totally crash after lunch?
Yeah, I love that. Tune in to those little cues that your body's giving you. It's really amazing what you can learn when you actually listen. And then, once you have a sense of your natural rhythms, you can start playing around with your workout schedule and just see what happens.
Exactly. Like maybe shifting your workouts to the afternoon for a week or two, maybe you'll learn something new.
Yeah.
Or, if you're like a die-hard morning workout person, keep doing your thing, but just, be mindful of how you feel.
I like that. It's all about finding what works for you. Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that this is just like one piece of the puzzle when it comes to health, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We can't forget about all the other important things like eating well, managing stress, getting enough sleep.
Yeah, all that good stuff. It's not about adding more pressure. It's about giving yourself another tool to help you feel your best.
Yes.
It's about empowering you to take control of your health.
I love that. And as always, we encourage everyone listening to keep exploring, keep asking questions. If you have any thoughts about your own experiences with exercise timing, we want to hear them.
Yeah, we're always eager to learn from our listeners and just dive deeper into these fascinating topics together.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Who would thought that when you exercise could actually make such a big difference, especially for people with type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it? It definitely makes you think twice about how we approach exercise.
Totally. It's not just about hitting the gym or going for that run. It's about really thinking about when we're doing it. And you know what? Maybe it's time to ditch that whole one-size-fits-all idea of exercise and really embrace a more personalized approach.
I think you're right. We're all different, right? And our bodies respond to things in their own way.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave everyone with a little something to think about. If you could experiment with the timing of your own workouts, what would you try? Would you shift your routine to the afternoon, like in that study?
Yeah.
or maybe do something completely different.
I think the key is to just really pay attention to how you feel, your
Yeah.
energy levels, your mood, how you feel during and after your workouts. Your body will tell you if you're listening.
Yeah, I love that. And remember, it's all about just having fun with it and experimenting. There's no right or wrong answer. It's about finding what feels good for you and helps you reach your goals,
Yeah.
whatever those goals are.
Exactly.
So that's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See you then.